We've now come to a special time we like to call Jussi time. Well, this is time for Jussi Kiviniemi to come on and talk to us about tools. He loves tools. He loves pinball more than tools, but he loves tools. And so he's going to talk to us about tools in the Wi-Fi space and how they can make our lives easier when we use the right tools. Let's go to Jussi.
Good afternoon and good evening, everybody, and welcome to the CWNP conference. And for the next 45 minutes, it's gonna be Toolzapalooza, guys. So we'll be talking about Wi-Fi tools. As you know, there's been a lot of shift in Wi-Fi tools lately. So we'll talk about what's been happening, what's going on with all the Wi-Fi and networking tools in general. And we'll also talk a little bit about where some of the Wi-Fi tools are going as well. So there's some exciting things happening. So thanks for tuning in. Stay with us. Let's start the show. So here's how the presentation is going to pan out. First, we'll talk about some of the dilemmas that the tool makers have to go through. I mean, it's not always as easy to make those tools as one might think. We'll talk about why didn't, your specific feature perhaps make it into the tool. We'll talk about the challenges of tool making in general. We'll talk about feature prioritization, all this kind of stuff. Then we'll look at some of the more popular Wi-Fi tools, where they are at today, and also some of the upcoming features as well you'll see in the near future. So it's going to be exciting. Just need to find a place to sit down, set up the slides, and here we go. All right. Found a place to sit, and it's going to be all about Toolzapalooza from here on out. Here's the agenda one more time, and let's get rolling. So this is me. I'm Jussi. If you want to find out more, just Google Jussi Wi-Fi. These days, my job includes putting old Wi-Fi stuff into the museum, and what I did before that, I actually worked for a Wi-Fi tools vendor for quite a few years as well. So let's jump right into it. So why isn't my feature that I always wanted from a Wi-Fi tool, why isn't it there yet? Well, there's so many reasons for that. It's not just coding that's associated with that. Everything takes time. The workload associated with the task itself. You need to build the business case. You need to get the management approval. You need to specify the features, and when specifying a feature for a Wi-Fi tool, UX, of course, or user experience plays a pivotal role. So how is this feature going to look like for the user? How is it going to solve the user's problems? It's so important to get that right. You need to make the feature efficient. You need to make it function well. You need to make it especially simple, and the simplicity is the one thing that's super hard to pull off. Then there's also like business considerations, like how does this new feature, potential feature, fit along with the other features? Is there already a feature that does some or all of it? Do we need to throw out the old feature in with the new? Do we need to consider licensing, cannibalization? Will creating this feature actually break something else in the tool that we haven't thought about? Will it be contradictory with some other feature in the tool? There's so many things to consider. Then when you actually get a go ahead and you go, let's actually start doing it. You need to, first of all, of course, make the code, make the specifications, do it. But then there's also QA involved. And then what's often overlooked is the life cycle of the feature itself. I know we hear a lot about the life cycle of a product, but there's also a life cycle for a feature. So from its infancy, development phase into like rolling out the first version of the feature, we didn't probably get everything in there. We probably did an MVP or minimum viable product. So the feature needs to build, and you need to, with product releases, you need to grow the feature and all of that. And at some point, the feature becomes like almost like obsolete. The world moves on. Maybe this feature, was regarding a technology that's not there anymore. Whatever the reason, you may start fading down that feature and eventually take that out of the product. But during all that time, during those, let's say 10 years of the feature, you need to maintain that, and you need to make sure it keeps working as well. You need to test it every time you make a new release, all of that stuff. Then there's the other good features for why isn't my feature in the product yet? Well, there's obviously other priorities. Maybe some other customers have asked for something else first. Maybe your roadmap has been set into stone for a while already. I hope not, but that happens as well. There's just so many other priorities. Maybe there's a large paying customer that just absolutely requires this certain feature. There's related to that, in relation to that, there's earlier commitments that you have made to different customers, to your boss, to the management team. It needs to align with the strategy of the company, strategy of the product. Maybe you have some OEM projects going on. Maybe you're working with a big company making, a rebranded version of the tool for them, or a co-branded version that might take up your development resources, whatever that is. And of course, there's always, whenever there's people, there's egos at play. And this is super interesting, right? You have to, let's say as a product manager, you have to navigate through the egos, and especially, of course, the higher you go in the food chain of the company, the bigger the egos are. Let's say decisions never are truly rational for anyone. There's always biases, there's always egos involved, there's always power play. All of that comes into play as well when creating these features.
So here is my favorite TV show from when I was 5 years old. It's called Knight Rider.
So what did Michael Knight say when he was first entering the car, the driver of the car? What did he say? He said, and this is the direct quote, with all these weird gadgets, you'd think they would give you a radio. And this is how I feel about some of the tools out there as well today. This is one of the things that's really challenging for the tools as well as Wi-Fi systems in general. They are overly complicated. There's way too many buttons. The effortless and efficient is thrown out of the window. There's plenty of features for sure. And that's a crow right there. Your goals could perhaps be simpler. So if you compare Michael Knight's car to today's, let's say, Tesla Model 3, which is overly simplified, maybe that's kind of it. The Tesla Model 3, if you look at the interior, it has pretty much a screen and that's about it, and a steering wheel. So it gets the task done, but with the minimum amount of learning. And here's the deal. It affects everything. The more features you add to a product, essentially, I'm sorry to say, the worse the product becomes. It becomes harder to use, it becomes harder to learn. The more features you have, the more bugs you have. And if we look at another graph, what can make it even worse is bad user experience design. Even if you have just a few features, you can still screw things up pretty badly if you do the user interface in a clunky way. So not always do you have to have a lot of features to have a suboptimal user experience. Luckily, if you have really good user experience people on your payroll who really understand how to get to the point quickly, an iPhone is a great example of this. Compare a Nokia phone from that era to an iPhone, which just blew everybody out of the water. And I would claim that the UX is exactly what made iPhone successful. Definitely not the amount of features. I mean, the first iPhone didn't have 3G even. And this relates also to the relearning dilemma. Very few people use Wi-Fi tools actually on a daily basis. Many of you use them on a weekly basis. Many of you use them on a monthly basis, even bi-monthly. There's this process called relearning involved, especially with feature-rich tools. When you take the tool out of your bag, does it have, first of all, does it have battery? Can you get it started? Do you need to install the updates? But then do you remember how to use it? There's so many bells and whistles in many of these things that you need to relearn the tool every time you use it. So how to disrupt this amount of features versus usability dilemma, we can learn from Michael Knight and his car. So I'm not talking about super pursuit mode here. I mean, great feature, but it doesn't help with the usability dilemma. What I'm talking about is voice recognition. When I, for example, use my iPhone, I hardly ever open the calendar app. I just tell the phone, hey Siri, add to calendar for 10:30 tomorrow meeting with Joel Crane, and it will do that. Another example would be, okay, so there you have it. It just works that well. When I make phone calls, when I even send SMSs, I do it all using voice recognition. And this is where I think it's also going, whether it's voice recognition or text-to-speech or whatever, this disrupts the amount of features versus usability thing if it's implemented very, very well. There's another dilemma. One of the things is like, how attractive of a feature for the masses do you create versus how in-depth do you make it? And you want to find the sweet spot somewhere in the middle. If it's not attractive and not in-depth, nobody cares. If it's very attractive but not in-depth at all, it's just a marketing feature. There's no substance behind it. And then if it's very in-depth and very attractive, does that really even exist? And if it's very in-depth and not at all mass attractive, you just build a feature for Keith Parsons and maybe some of the easiest C teachers. And then there's the whole serving a single customer versus the masses, separating the loud customers from the good demand. How do you navigate through somebody on Twitter who has 100,000 followers asking for the feature versus the other 10 that don't have any followers on Twitter? It's hard to be objective about the amount of features, the person's asking for it, and all that kind of stuff. It's always biased. Then there's the whole thing of customer feedback and internal innovation. So let's first talk about customer feedback. It's very essential for any product, and this is how many networking tool vendors thrive. It's required to improve the product, but rarely does a single feature lead into like a breakthrough innovation. This is the classical, no one asked Steve Jobs to build an iPhone. Internal innovation, it's critical, and it needs domain expertise and it needs technology expertise combined. And usually the big internal innovation requires like so many people inside the company, outside the company. So a domain expert who's also technologically savvy, who has talked to hundreds or thousands of customers, has a much better chance at doing something radical than someone who doesn't, even understand the product. So if we talk about this internal innovation, it's typically a team effort that requires at least people from 2 different teams, usually maybe even more. It's something that is somewhere in the intersection between teamwork and customer demand and domain expertise. So if we look at the tasks for the Wi-Fi tools, there's design and validation and on-the-spot analysis and troubleshooting and monitoring, plus then, of course, the maintenance of the net. How I started bucketing them is on the left, you have the tasks. On the right, you have some of the tools related to the tasks. And I was like, how should I categorize these and try to show them in a simple but non-confusing manner? And I came up with a circle thing that shows the tasks at the edge of the circles and then places different tools on those circles. And for example, as you can see, Ekahau does offsite design validation and on-the-spot analysis, whereas NetAlly also, focuses on troubleshooting more. Then there's Wi-Fi vendor browser-based tools, which are for monitoring and maintenance purposes of the network. And then there's packet tools that usually relate to troubleshooting, all this kind of stuff. Let's take a look at some of the tools that we have out there today and tomorrow. Starting with the undisputed favorite of the industry. So Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, right? Adrian Granados is just an excellent tool, very inexpensive. This has been covered in thousands of presentations. What I really like about it is wherever I have my Mac, I also have the tool. And that's very, very, very powerful. And if we look at like what's coming for the Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, because if you haven't, I think many of you have tried it, and if you haven't, you should do it today. Adrian, intuitivebeats.com is Adrian's company, but if you just Google Adrian Granados Wi-Fi, you'll find it. Let's take a look at some of the upcoming stuff. So Wi-Fi Explorer 3 is on its way, and it has tons of good stuff. It supports the latest macOS and all that, but it also, for example, can show you not just APs, but also clients associated with the APs. And this has traditionally been just, NetAlly, Etherscope, G2 territory, but now also Adrian is getting there as well, and it's looking very good. I do like how G2 and Etherscope utilize this as well, but also I do like Adrian's innovations. Another couple of things that you can see here is comparison of different networks, for example, to find out like configuration mistakes or all of that stuff. There's a feature now for that. And on the right-hand side, if we zoom there, we can also see that Adrian has implemented BLE beacon scanning directly into the Wi-Fi Explorer Pro. And this is pretty big, because BLE is getting bigger and bigger. I certainly like this feature, and how Adrian's implemented it is it requires zero extra hardware. It actually utilizes, I believe, the Bluetooth radio of the computer itself. And in case you didn't know, Adrian also has made support for Zigbee quite a while ago. So if you have a Zigbee dongle, Wi-Fi Explorer will also find those as well. For you that like to tinker and configure the tool in different ways, there's more stuff coming out for that as well. Columns, everybody likes to move those columns and make them to their liking. Column profiles is coming, as well as putting more detailed stuff on the columns themselves as well. Okay, that's one of Adrian's tools. The other one, AirTool 2. So quickly about AirTool 2, of course, supports the latest macOS, all of that stuff. What's really interesting is AirTool is essentially a packet capture tool for macOS using the integrated macOS radio. Not so much anymore. Now you can also remote sources for packet capture, including the WLAN Pi, the excellent WLAN Pi small Wi-Fi computer. And of course, when you talk about Adrian, you cannot forget my Wi-Fi signal. It's so simple. It's so awesome. I wish it just had active testing of the network as well in some capability. Even if it's just pinging, I just love how much information you can cram on the taskbar itself. All right. Then when you talk about Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, not everybody has a Mac. If you have Windows, actually WinFi is a really good tool as well. It looks very, very similar to Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, has a ton of features, a great evaluation mode, and even the paid one isn't very expensive. Definitely recommend. Then let's look at NetAlly. What have these guys been up to? Well, NetAlly, it's a different kind of animal. They have a lot of handheld tools that don't require connecting two different tools together. I like that. They have a lot to do with wire testing as well, and that's kind of where the previous like Fluke product line that NetAlly inherited through NetScout really started from. So it's excellent at testing wired, Ethernet, SFP, and also Wi-Fi. And AirCheck G2, everybody loves that. I wish I could say something about the G, but no. But I would say Etherscope, if much is no object on your tool line, or you really need something that's really sturdy, really heavy duty, and excellent at testing everything, I would highly recommend checking out the Etherscope XNG as well. It's kind of like a G2 on a lot of steroids. It has more horsepower, more slick user interface, fiber testing, of course, cable testing, excellent Wi-Fi testing capabilities. It's just really, really good. Of course, NetAlly also has a survey and planner, but they have kind of before NetAlly, they got kind of behind Ekahau in a lot of ways. So that's of course a challenge. But
having that said, now also on the Etherscope as well, you can survey, you can use cloud to analyze them, and you can use air magnet survey and planner in combination with all of those two. So there's definitely still updates coming and things are being developed. Certainly Ekahau did fly by NetAlly, back then NetScout and Fluke at some point. Just wanted to show, the Etherscope G2, all the bells and whistles, lots of testing features, lots of analysis features, lots of troubleshooting features. And what I really like is the combination of auto tests that you can create, all these testing profiles for wired, wireless, everything. And if you look at the bottom of the screen right now, you can see that there's actually a thing called periodic auto tests, which 24 hours, you can actually leave this running and testing the network or several different networks, wired and wireless. This is what I really like. And here's one like new use case that I would promote when you're setting up a Wi-Fi network. Leave one of these guys running for like 24 hours in the network, testing the network, once you really start utilizing it, and you'll get a pretty good idea on not just how the signal map looks like, but also on the reliability of the network over a period of time. If we talk about upcoming features for the NetAlly product line, one thing I'd like to highlight, thanks NetAlly guys for letting this cat out of the bag, is a really cool looking topology map upon discovery of network elements that's coming up. So that should be coming very, very soon on Q4. So just in a month or two to these devices, Etherscope and LinkRunner 10G. All right, let's talk about IBWave for a second. So IBWave, there used to be like this feud, and I guess still is, between Ekahau, Air Magnet or NetAlly, and IBWave. And IBWave is a fully three-dimensional planner plus a survey tool. And there's a few quirks and features that make IBWave semi-different from everybody else, and significantly different. One is IBWave accounts for reflections, which is really important in network planning. That's something most of the other guys don't do.
The other really big deal for IBWave is the capability to do full three-dimensional planning, obviously. So you can throw pretty much any CAD file at it and construct a fully three-dimensional model and work off of that. However, building that model can take more time than even surveying the network, but in many cases it's very, very useful. And it makes for a cool visual. The biggest thing maybe about IBWave, however, is that it can do cellular as well. CBRS, cellular, BLE, Zigbee, any wireless technology really. And what's coming up really soon to IBWave is actually their mobile app also will be supporting built-in cellular surveys. So previously you can do mobiles. You've been able to do mobile surveys on cellular previously, but this time it will not require any extra hardware either. You can use the mobile phone's built-in radio.
The other one, obviously, that's important is the 3D modeling capability and the accounting for reflections. Here we can see, for example, how a model looks like with reflections being modeled. I believe this is some kind of a warehouse. So here we can see reflections have been modeled, and if reflections are switched off, then the signal just doesn't seem to travel where it actually truthfully travels. So definitely an important thing.
Then there's these Tamosoft guys, and this is an interesting play. Lower cost, much lower cost than many of the other guys or almost any of the other survey tools for professional use. And it's pretty easy, and it has a very extensive feature set, especially given the price point of the tool.
I really gotta say, I always appreciated that back when I was also competing with Tamosoft. They really had their price point there, and they had plenty of features. They now support AX. Their adapter support, the list of supported adapters has always been very good. They do use external spectrum analyzers like the Metageek DBX for the tool as well. But I guess my question, the thing is, like, how much is the tool still being developed? And I did find some answers for this. So AX is now supported. They are working on a lot of the new things as well. And the other question I have is, how scalable is this tool to really large sites where often Ekahau, Air Magnet, and IBWave are used? The reason, maybe the only reason I guess I asked that is because I haven't seen it being used anywhere on a large site. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be there, but the feature list is impressive, and there's a free download for 30 days for Tamosoft. Warren Rautenbach. Oh, let me get. Here we go. I'm actually really hitting a rock here, and it's really freaking hard. Okay, Warren Rautenbach from Australia did a fantastic job at comparing Ekahau Pro with the Tamograph site survey tool from Tamosoft. So if you Google Warren, Ekahau, Tamosoft, or something like that, you should find his videos. It's like a 30-minute video, 1 or 2 of those, I think. And he did a good job at summarizing like the key differences, stuff like that. For Warren, the biggest differentiator was actually, a bit surprisingly, the reporting capabilities, which in Ekahau are really, really well customizable and well implemented. But check it out, Warren, Tamosoft, Ekahau. Thank you, Warren, for the excellent overview. And what's coming up for Tamosoft? I think this is a pretty big deal. Tamosoft will be able to do predictive modeling also for CBRS networks. And since CBRS seems to be really gaining momentum in the US, it's good that they are looking at different technologies as well. You guys still with me? All right. Then a tool I know a little something about as well, Ekahau. So Ekahau is clearly, make no mistake, they are in a category of their own when it comes to market adoption. And I think for a good reason. If there was like a Gartner Magic Quadrant for Wi-Fi planning and site survey tool, Ekahau would be far to the northeast in that quadrant. It's packed with features, and I'm really biased, and I'm sorry for saying this, but I think the amount of features versus usability is really good in Ekahau. It has the right amount of features, the right features, and it still remains usable. And of course, Sidekick for fieldwork, it's a very effective device. It's high performance and all of that. Granted, it's no NetAlly G2, which allows you to just push off a button and it's on, no connecting, nothing like that. So I think it's more like a preference question in a lot of cases if you're looking at analyzing something in depth or troubleshooting. But for site surveys and planning, Ekahau is a really, really good tool. However, Ekahau, of course, has its drawbacks. I think mainly it doesn't support reflections in predictive modeling, which is a pretty big drawback. And the other one is it's pretty much Wi-Fi only. It has BLE planning capabilities, but that's it. So for us wireless engineers, that may become a bit of a challenge at some point. One of the things that's cool and recent about Ekahau, for some reason I'm not able to talk about their upcoming features, but what's recently announced is GPS surveys for the iPhone and iPad app. And I was surprised, like, this works really, really well. It's a nice feature. It makes outdoor surveys automatic, and it utilizes the integrated GPS in the iPhone and in the iPad. Works really well, and of course you can connect external GPS units in there as well if the iPad or iPhone is not accurate enough. But for me, for wider area GPS surveys, it was plenty accurate, and I mean it just worked very, very well. But of course it depends. If you're in New York, the iPhone GPS may not be awesome, or Boston, or in high-rise environments, stuff like that. But I really found that a good addition when it came out. Ekahau has also slipped in their webinars that Android version of the mobile tools is going to be available at some point. So for you that just refuse to utilize iOS for some reason, maybe that's a good thing. But one really important thing that's changed in Ekahau, and I think for the better, is the view mode selection. So if you're using an Ekahau Sidekick to do measurements out in the field, Sidekick has really, really good quality Wi-Fi radios, but that has a drawback. The upside of Sidekick is it picks up radios even from far away, but the drawback is it shows overly optimistic readings. These readings don't have much to do with readings gathered by your cell phone, and that's why Ekahau implemented the view mode selection, which essentially imitates, takes in the Sidekick measurements, but it shows them by default as if they were gathered with a mobile phone. And I really like that because it's more representative of the most common, least capable device in the network. So definitely a good addition, but just be mindful on how to use it. So if you use, was it Option or Command and click the legend? So you need to be holding down Option key and then click the color legend below, and you will see the advanced settings of view as measured. Or you can go to the device profiles and from there create new ones where you can actually do the offsets for 2, 4, and 5 as well. And I highly recommend using this feature, and it's as an infrequent user, you don't have a choice. Actually, this is enabled by default. So if you see some funky behavior, or if you think your results from the Sidekick are more pessimistic these days than what they were, that's just because this change has taken effect, and it's now default in every Ekahau project that you make. So again, Sidekick measurements, optimistic. This view mode selection and device profiles allows you to offset 2, 4, and 5 to get more representative results as if they were gathered with a mobile phone, okay? So that's pretty cool. The other cool Ekahau related thing that I feel is this, like as Wi-Fi engineers, we want everything to be easy. So from Ekahau to a fully functional Wi-Fi system, for example, we at MIST, kudos to Wes Purvis and the team, have implemented this drag and drop feature for importing Ekahau files. So just drag the Ekahau files into the MIST UI and drop them there, and it will automatically get the maps, the AP locations, even associate the real-world APs with the Ekahau APs, and all of that with a single drag and drop. Ekahau has all the MIST APs in there, and it even really well supports the antenna direction of our BLE arrays. So kudos again to Wes and the MIST R&D team for making such a cool integration feature. You can't talk about Ekahau without one of the pastime kings of the Wi-Fi industry as well, which is Metageek. So these guys actually, kudos to Ryan and all the guys at Metageek, these guys brought Wi-Fi spectrum analysis back in the day to mainstream. This is like almost 15 years ago when we started talking with Ryan. He had just came out with the first Wi-Fi spectrum analyzer that was small, affordable, usable, and I was like, we need something like that too. And the whole industry did, and that's how Metageek got its fame. It started with 2.4, now it has DBX, had it for a long time, which is 2.4 and 5. These are affordable, good devices, certainly not up to Sidekick, level of granularity or real-timeness, but still solid USB-based devices. Metageek also has what's called Wi-Spy Air, which is essentially an ASIUM product rebranded for Metageek with some Metageek-based software in there. It's a good solid product if you want something like spectrum analysis in a small form factor on a mobile phone. Metageek is also well known for the other tools such as Insider and Channelizer, all of that stuff. And then they have this small quirky packet visualizer called IPA. If you've seen these colored rings and all of that stuff, it's very usable actually for understanding some of the characteristics of, like your airtime consumption and things like that based on a simple packet capture. So check it out. So as for Metageek hardware, like where I would look at that, if I had Windows and I needed a cheap small spectrum analyzer, I would probably go with DBX. If I prefer to use mobile on my spectrum analyzer and needed something very lightweight that I could always carry with me that didn't take much space from my bag, I would try the Wi-Spy Air. Okay, lastly about Metageek, they have this new product called Rampart Home, which is essentially, it's a home network tester that then connects to the cloud. And it's kind of like work from home type of solution where IT can get a centralized view of the employees' home connections, and the home users can do something about their home connections as well, certainly see like how well they're performing and things like that. I haven't had the time, in all honesty, to take a close look at this yet, but I will come back maybe with a post later. This tool looks very interesting. I really like how simple it seems, how it hits the work from home situation right now very well. Something to look forward to. So then let's take a quick look at the packet analyzers. So which packet analyzer should I choose? Here's a quick cheat sheet for you guys. So if it's a cloud and browser based, you should take probably CloudShark. CloudShark is really, really good. Essentially, it's Wireshark in the cloud, but it also has a lot of cool sharing features, obviously, because it's in the cloud. And you can run a local version of it in your enterprise NOC, or you can run it on the public cloud. It's a very, very cool evolution, I think, from Wireshark towards the browser world. Of course, Wireshark, if you're okay with installing software and you want something free and something that works on both Windows and Mac. If you want something cheap, maybe consider Tamosoft ComView. If you want to be Peter McKenzie and go all out, definitely go with OmniPeak. They're working right now on the AX features as well there, should be good. And then if you just want to, visualize airtime, things like that, go with Metageek IPA. At least check it out. I think they have a free evaluation version. All right, we're getting closer towards the end. So what else is there? Let's go back to Michael Knight's talking car for one more time. So something I wanted to show you, which relates to this speech detection or natural language detection, as well as packet captures. So let's try to find some bad boys in a network. This is the Mist Marvis system, and it's kind of like Michael Knight's car. You can speak to it, and it speaks back to you. So I just told it bad boys, and it found the most misbehaving clients in the network. You go to Insights, and you can see what exactly was going on with that badly behaving client, and you can filter by, give me all the bad events by the client. There we go, authorization failures. It gives you like a view of, this is exactly what I think went wrong. But if you want, I actually have a packet capture saved for you. And if that's not enough, of course, you can download the packet capture and open that in, if you have Wireshark installed, and there we have it. But the new thing that's not out yet, but that's pretty cool, is we added a feature where you can open a capture file directly in CloudShark. You don't need to register to CloudShark or anything. You know, this is a single click in the Mist UI opens a free version of CloudShark where you can start analyzing the packets. It's kind of similar what I said about Ekahau, the balance between lots of features, lots of things that really make sense, but also the usability. Mist has the same thing here. The whole dynamic packet capture, CloudShark integration, everything works without installing anything extra. The natural language input and output detection, all of the AI, everything. You didn't have to install anything. You just plugged, you know, your APs in, configured it through the cloud, and there you have everything. Dynamic packet capture, CloudShark integration, Ekahau integration, full location tracking capabilities. I'm telling you, usability is so important. I asked a guy from back then, Trapeze, when Aerospace was acquired by Cisco in 2005. I asked a guy from Trapeze the next year, like, why do you think that was? Why wasn't Trapeze acquired? And the answer was, the best out-of-box experience was with Aerospace. And that's like resonated to me so much. The out-of-box experience, the efficiency of using the tools, it's just so important. And one last thing I wanted to say when talking about tools, I didn't forget sensors either. So Wi-Fi sensors have kind of came and went over time. There was with sweep sensors from AirMagnet and Airtight and you know, Motorola back in the day, but then security kind of became commonplace and the whole category faded. Now there's Wi-Fi performance assurance, connection assurance sensors out there as well. I don't know if it's gonna you know, stay or not, but if you want like a low cost sensor tryout, I would, for example, recommend the WLAN Pi. So if you use what's called YPerf on the WLAN Pi, just Google Nigel Bowden YPerf. That's a good way to get started with sensor networks. The other one I would highly recommend is Cubicon, which is an up and coming sensor company, very inexpensive sensors, very flexible business models, very lightweight organization. There's a lot to like about these guys. They are very responsive to feature requests. Cubicon, K-U-B-I-C-O-N. .io, Cubicon. So check those guys out as well. I'm not personally, I've never been a huge fan of 24/7 sensors, but I know that there's a lot of you that are, and I really respect the category. What I do like is when you set up a Wi-Fi network, maybe have a, you know, as a systems integrator, maybe you should have those sensors, place a few of those at the site for the first month of the usage of the network. As a customer, I would be pretty happy to get a report of how my network actually, when it was implemented, how did it work during the first month? Maybe something to think about. Another kind of new use case I've been thinking in these COVID times for the Wi-Fi network is in line with what Ryan Woodings from Metageek was thinking with Rampart. So what if there was a way to you know, get a situation report of a Wi-Fi network without going on site? So what I've started doing is actually just have the customer install, let's say, a WinFi or Wi-Fi Explorer Pro on their machines, and then we together look at the situation of their Wi-Fi network and start analyzing the network remotely first without sending an engineer on site. And there's so much you can actually do with that. Walk to a problematic area, now show me your screen, how is it working, open Wi-Fi Explorer Pro, all of that stuff. Just a couple of use cases maybe to think about. I know I'm way out of time, guys, so thank you for listening, really appreciate that. This is Jussi, signing out.
Hey, just one more thing. With this speak ending, I will be adding the links to the Wi-Fi vendors in question, as well as the makers of those tools, to both my LinkedIn profile, as well as to my Twitter handle profile. So do check them out. Let's definitely keep in touch. Also hit me up if you wanna, talk more about tools or about better Wi-Fi or what have you. But anyway, keep in touch and do let those tool vendors know, what you think of their tools, what should be there, what shouldn't be there, all that kind of stuff. Because that's really the only way these guys can improve the quirks and features of their products. Anyway, thanks for taking your time, and thank you CWNP for having me. Much appreciated. I hope to see you guys in a nearby conference soon again.
All right, and here we are. As you saw, Jussi was just pulling away, but he has arrived with us now. And so he is here, took off that sweatshirt, went indoors, and he's ready to talk to us about your questions and make sure we get those answered. So Jussi, thanks so much. Where are you coming from today?
I am in Helsinki, Finland, as I have been since a Wireless LAN Professionals Conference, which took place in like February. So, dude, I'm stuck here. Where are you, Tom? Don't tell me you're traveling.
I'm actually in North Carolina, which is the first time I've been out of the state I live in, which is Ohio, since WLPC in February. So
Nice.
like you, for most of the time this year, I have stayed home. And this is my first trip out, getting to come down to North Carolina. But other than that, haven't been doing any traveling either. So, well,
Very
hey,
good.
glad to have you here. Love your backdrop. Love the wheels and the pinball machines. Really, really cool.
Yeah, you should come over and play, well, in 2022.
Exactly. Well, for now, let's address some of these questions that have come in. So first of all, one of the questions that came in, and I know you did answer it in the text Q&A, and for everybody, know that the questions are there in the Q&A panel, and some of them are answered in text, some of them we just answer live, but we do our best to get as many of your questions answered as possible. One of the questions is about Wi-Fi Explorer and the ability to compare the configurations of two different access points. The question was, can you actually do that? So you want to expand on that a little bit, Jussi?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you, Mark, for shooting the only actual question online. So absolutely, you can now compare two different networks in Wi-Fi Explorer very easily, and just reach out to Adrian Granados, and I'm sure he will be happy to shoot you something to test it with, and go from there. But it's a great addition. First of all, like what is the use case for this again? But then after talking with Adrian for a little bit, it's pretty clear it's a useful feature.
Absolutely, and Adrian's always very helpful. Definitely someone, if you contact him, he'll be ready to help you out. We did actually have another question come in from Landon. He says, what do you think is the biggest leap forward so far in Wi-Fi? So if you look back over the years you've been in and around it, what do you think was the thing that was really transformational over those years?
Oh, I mean, obviously the first standards were really big, like .11 and B and all that. But I think N was a really big deal for me. Like so many advancements that truly put the throughput and data rates to the next level. And then I'm going to say three things. So N, first of all. Secondly, the community that Keith and Peter and the other like long timers and you guys, CWNP, playing a huge role, have kind of gathered around Wi-Fi. I think that's been hugely beneficial in so many ways. But think of like, how would we design networks, and how much would we know about recent advancements if it wasn't for the community? So that's been really transformational, I think, and anytime we go to a hotel or a shopping mall or a hospital, I think we're reaping the benefits of the community as well. And thirdly, I'm going to say, at the risk of sounding cheesy, I'm going to say Wi-Fi 6E is going to be huge. It's kind of going to be like N, but still bigger transformational change. I mean, there's no like specific feature additions, but just the wealth of spectrum that we're going to have. It's going to provide so much more capacity. It's going to make deploying networks easier. And it's going to make Wi-Fi networks so much more robust. Granted, there's hurdles to go with that and difficulties and more complexity inside. But if we as Wi-Fi vendors and the tools vendors play nicely together and play our cards right, I think 6E will be very transformational for the industry for the better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I actually mentioned in one of the sessions yesterday that I think it'll be very different this time. And what I mean by that is when we got 5 gigahertz, literally all the way back in 1999, it was a good decade or so before we saw good saturation of 5 gigahertz devices out there. I think it'll be different this time. I think we'll start to see heavier saturation within the next 18 to 24 months. And so because of that, I think we'll begin to reap the benefit a lot more quickly. Well, before I let you go, I do have to address something. You said that the only real question, now hold on, there was a real question out here, and I've got 30 seconds for you to tell us 3 steps. How can I become UC?
I think it's a couple of steps. So first of all, you need to make your face a lot uglier, but there's Botox and plastic surgery for that. Secondly, the haircut is pretty easy, and then I'm sure there's a few shady shops that do like extreme lobotomy to take like certain parts of your brain out. And did I make it in 30 seconds?
You did, UC. Thank you very much. Hey, I appreciate you being with us today. Your presentation was excellent as usual.
Thank you so much, Tom, for having me. I really appreciate that. Great conference. Congratulations.
Thank you. Take care.